Hello and welcome to the Rank and Flank podcast. My name is Finton, and these are my co-hosts AJ
Hello.
and Tim.
Good evening.
How are you guys doing today?
Oh, pretty good for a Monday, all things considered.
It's a great day. Part of me sore back.
It's a good day to record a show. We're going to be talking about the tournament that we went to in Underworld Gaming just last Saturday.
Yes, the first Irish Old World tournament.
Terribly exciting.
Well, it's 1,000 points. It can only get so exciting.
Yeah. We're also going to be discussing the campaign that we've just gotten underway in our own store, as well as characters and unit roles in the Art of War, and characters and centerpiece models in Hobby Horse.
The Tournament Zone.
All right, so we're going to be moving into the tournament zone, which is a section we haven't done on this podcast. It's just where we're going to be discussing tournaments, how any tournaments we've been to recently, and just how we feel about tournament scene, that kind of thing.
Yep, and indeed any tournaments coming up we'll announce. So I guess if you have a tournament that you're running, let us know and we'll talk about it on the next episode. We're mostly focused on tournaments in Ireland.
Yeah.
But happy to give a shout out to anyone, literally.
Yep. The tournament we went to was called Breakpoint, I believe, and it was in Underworld Gaming. It was a 1,000 point event. We played 3 games over one day. What did you think about it?
I think for its intention, it nailed it. And the intention was to get us all to play Warhammer for the first time, play 3 games, and learn the rules. And that's what I did,
Absolutely.
What armies did you guys take up?
I brought Wood Elves.
I brought Warriors of Chaos.
And my Wood Elves were... I basically took a little bit of everything. I took a 3-man Ancient. I took a Noble on a Warhawk, some Glade Guards, some Dryads, some War Dancers, and some Wild Riders, and even a Great Eagle. So a very small number of these things to try and fit into 1,000 points, just to kind of see what they all did on the battlefield.
Yeah, and I brought kind of the opposite of that a little bit. I brought 2 units of Chaos Warhounds, big block of Chaos Warriors, and a Sorcerer in there. And I brought a unit of Chosen Chaos Knights, who were absolutely devastating, and a Chaos Giant. And what I found was that with all of the things in the list other than the Warriors being move 6 and above, the Warriors kind of got left behind, especially considering that every game I played was against Dwarves.
Yeah, that would do it.
Yeah. There were 3 Dwarf players. All 3 of my games were against Dwarves.
Yes, and weirdly, I had a very similar experience. There were 3 Bretonnian players, and all 3 of my games were against Bretonnia. There were 3 very different armies and 3 very different games, but I was hoping to see more of other units in order to kind of get a better feel for the game. At the end of the day, I feel like I learned a bunch going back over my games and thinking about what rules I missed or learning rules in the middle of the game, stuff like that.
Yeah. I did not use the Gaze of the Gods table once during all 3 of my games, which I absolutely forgot.
Whoops.
The main thing I took away from this event is that Giants are awesome.
Yep.
And that monsters, I think, in general are going to be great.
Yep.
And also, I don't want to fight dwarves again.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think you should fight dwarves again.
Yeah.
In fact, I think you should fight them next week. But
it's a great plan.
we've got. How useful do you think Gaze of the Gods would have been in your games?
To be honest, it probably wouldn't have made much of a difference. The one game that I ended up losing, I lost pretty soundly, and the only character that I would have ended up using Gaze of the Gods on would have been out of combat for the entire time.
Right, fair enough.
So it just would have made his units stupid rather than frenzied. Like, it's not a huge deal.
Yeah, because I think on the roll of a 1, you get,
You become stupid for the
Yeah.
rest of the game, yeah.
which is pretty bad, but I think it's definitely better than, I think, the Chaos tables of the past where you could end up becoming a Chaos Spawn. Or,
Yeah, on a double one, yeah.
Yeah.
Or descending to Demon Princehood, because you definitely have that model ready.
Yep.
But just sorry, your point made me think. If you are frenzied and you get stupidity, you're still frenzied.
Oh, yes, but if you fail your leadership test, you don't have to declare a charge because you're stupid.
Interesting.
Because you just walk forward, you can't declare a charge because you're not able.
Right. So the frenzy, you're like, okay, fair enough. The stupidity.
Too stupid to be angry.
Too stupid to be angry at that point. Yeah, fair enough. I think I agree with what you said. I think monsters are going to be more prevalent in this edition especially because ridden monsters are no longer like kind of treated as a weird two-piece model. They're now just one model with the expanded profile.
And loads of wounds.
Loads of wounds, loads of extra toughness. I brought the Tree Man Ancient. She survived all 3 games despite taking many, many charges from lances. Thankfully, nobody brought flaming lances, but so yeah, very good at holding on to her points. And I had originally intended to take her with the lore of Athaloran and cast Tree Singing, which was a spell that brings a forest into existence. And sadly, so this was a good tactic in the past, where you could put a forest in front of a unit, and then it was difficult for them to charge or even declare a charge, et cetera, et cetera. Well, now it's just a remains in play spell. So in the strategy phase, that's when you dispel remains in play spells. So before you have to declare charges, goodbye forest, and now I can see everything again. And so
Yeah, I played a game just the other day against Dark Elves with Dark Magic. And they got Phantasmagoria, which is another magical vortex,
yeah,
which remains in play. Placed down the template. They tried to get my units to either run away or charge impetuously, and then every turn I just dispel it before it could do anything.
yeah. So I think what really came through for me was how good the assailment spells are, and particularly Hammerhand on that Tree Man Ancient. I actually went out and I figured out that so she has a stand and shoot because of her Strangle Root attack.
Oh, neat.
D6 plus 1 multiple shots at strength 5. And then she can also do up to 8 strength 5 hits in combat if she's lucky, because of Thunderstomp and her tree whack and stuff like that. And she's tough 6 and 6 wounds, and really hard to take down. So I was very impressed with that. On the opposite end, I was kind of depressed with how the Dryads are now. They're kind of wimpy. They don't stick around for very long. I'm not sure how to use them anymore, so I've got to experiment.
Who even are you anymore?
Exactly.
Would you think that maybe taking some Spearmen might get into that role a little bit better?
I think the Wood Elf Spearmen are the absolute worst. Like, this is the Eternal Guard.
Aren't they like 14 points a model or something?
They're expensive and they die to a stiff breeze.
Yeah, I think toughness 3 with 5 up armor save.
Yep. And
For so many points.
yeah. I don't know. I mean, I reserve judgment until we start playing games at a 2,000, 2,500 sort of point scale.
Yeah, especially since these games were all just kill as many models as you can, and that's your victory points.
Well, more or less. There was one that we played that was breakpoint.
Yeah, it was called. It was a breakpoint. Yeah,
breaking point. Yeah,
you had to get down to 25% of your starting unit strength, and then whoever did that first lost entirely.
Yes, lost entirely.
But again, that's just kill all the
everything.
models.
Yeah,
just a different flavor of it.
Yeah, that's true. So the whole tournament was organized by Andy from Mediocre Hobbies. He has a YouTube channel. I got to play him in the second game. He's a very nice chap. and he made little forward arc widgets for everybody, which was nice.
Very useful.
Yeah, and essential for playing.
Absolutely.
For playing Warhammer. So I passed. I have a bunch of them, so I passed mine along to somebody else at our game store that didn't have one. So thank you, Andy. Yeah, overall, I had a blast. You know, it was great to play 3 games back to back and really get a feel for the game again.
Absolutely. I also really enjoyed it. It was a very fun time. All right, moving into the campaign corner. We've started our campaign properly now.
Yay!
Played a couple of games, done a bunch of turns in Mighty Empires. Just wanted to go over exactly how all of that's working. Because it's not exactly any one specific system. We've kind of made a Frankenstein of a couple different things. I'd also like to talk about the objective of the whole campaign, just the flavor of it.
Yeah,
But-
so I mean, I think it's important. Like we're doing this campaign to play more games of Warhammer, and just to have a feeling of meaning behind the games that we're playing. And so far, I think it's working.
Absolutely. I think there's a lot to improve on, but I think it's definitely working.
Oh, it's led to games, so
Sure has.
Yeah.
I think that's one objective absolutely nailed.
Yep.
So, this campaign, we have been fighting over an inland sea. That is the objective of our game. At the end of this campaign, we're going to have a big multiplayer battle, and whoever controls the most tiles around this inland sea we have on our map is going to get a large advantage. We haven't exactly nailed down the specifics of how that's going to work, but it's just a way to get us all into the center fighting battles for the next couple months. We had a couple of those battles, but just yesterday, those went interestingly.
Yep.
The independent settlements that we were trying to quickly envelop into our empires managed to soundly defeat the attackers. In one instance by wiping them out to the last man, and in another by, do you want to tell them about the tree man?
Oh yeah. So I was playing as independent defenders of a city as wood elves, and the dwarven army was shooting everything because there was this nice killing field in the middle, and Ben's unit of hammers with his king in it looked.
I think they were Ironbreakers.
Ironbreakers with
Yeah.
Ironbreakers. Yes, that's right. Ironbreakers. They looked the same from a distance.
So short, you know.
In fact, the dwarves kind of look the same close up, to be fair.
Well,
They're all just armor and beards, right?
Armour, beard and weapons.
very shiny. So anyway, the tree man ancient, hero of the hour, she declared a charge on that unit, and they failed their leadership test. And
At leadership 10.
At leadership 10, they rolled an 11. There was no BSB because it was only 1,000 points. No veteran, no nothing. We looked at everything.
Surprisingly, Ironbreakers are not immune to psychology.
Yeah, and they turned tail and ran. And being dwarfs, they only ran like I think 6 inches. And my tree lady,
They ran 5 inches away, and they were already 6 inches away.
yes,
Tree lady rolled a 12-inch charge.
yes, and caught them and wiped them out to a dwarf.
Yep.
And so that basically tipped the game in one roll, 2 rolls. But yes, the terror for the first time, actually, that was the 4th game I played where that was the first time terror had an impact on the game. But wow, what an impact! So Ben, my opponent, was a great sport about it. He thought it was hilarious, but ouch.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And after the battles, we, seeing as none of our Mighty Empire's banners that we have are actually representing individual forces of individual factions, because we want everyone to be able to play whatever they can, whenever they can, we had to come up with some rules for resolving casualties and having characters take injuries and that sort of thing. So what we came up with is after the battle, every model that died, except for characters, you roll a d6, and on a 4+ they live. Otherwise, they die, and their points are removed from the banner. Characters, there's a table from a 8th edition supplement called Blood in the Badlands, which we're using for our injury table. When characters are removed, you roll a d6 on that, and it's got a whole bunch of results there. In the game I played against Dark Elves, my giant headbutted a I think it was a blood crone or something like that. I don't know Dark Elf character names.
The
Witch Elf Champion.
Witch Elf character, yeah.
the hag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Blood Hag, I think it was called, something like that.
Yep.
Headbutted her. After the game, you rolled a psychological injury and gained stupidity.
That's so appropriate.
Yep. So he's going to paint her up with a big purple bruise on her head.
Nice.
In addition, we rolled for Spoils of War for the winning side, or at least we would have if they weren't both settlement garrisons.
Oh, okay.
And the Spoils of War are another table from Blood in the Badlands, which gives you various things from bonus magic items for one of your units or characters to gaining hatred against the faction that you just beat, or getting some extra troops.
Cool.
And then the defeated side also rolled on the ignominious defeat, I believe it was called, that table. The Dark Elves, in the next battle against Chaos, will have hatred against all of them.
Nice.
Because
it was an ignominious defeat.
Yes.
So they're like, we'll get you next time.
Exactly. Very Dark Elfy.
Very Dark Elfy.
It was a very flavorful thing for just our first games.
Yep.
The scenarios we ran was from the Kings of War tournament pack, I believe.
Yeah, so I wanted to kind of have scenarios. The two battles represented banners attacking cities on the map. And so we wanted to have the feel of the game be that these were invaders coming to kind of occupy territory. And so I chose the Occupy scenario from Clash of Kings. I think it's 2018, which, it can be described pretty simply. You have 3 objective markers on the center line spread apart, and they're worth 1 point each. And an objective marker in each deployment zone. The one in your own deployment zone is worth 0 to you, but 2 to your enemy. So you've got a total of 5 points you can potentially have. And you fight over those objectives over the course of the game. It's great because it definitely simulates, an invasion happening. For the objective marker in the invaders deployment zone, for us, we had a hostage. So
nice.
Yeah, we took a model of Draco that I have, a branch wraith, and he put a giant slayer model with her holding her hostage, and that was the objective.
Brilliant.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, it was I love the flavor of it, and it just made the battle more fun.
Yeah.
So
I think in the future we can actually add even more flavor on top of that, where we have things like actual characters who do get captured, who we can try and rescue, which is another thing for Blood in the Badlands.
I love that idea.
We can also have things like caches of magic items in objectives where you get d6 times 20 points of magic items in your next battle if you hold this. That was an idea from Ben on the Discord.
Yeah, nice. I'm looking forward to exploring the empty tiles to see if I can turn up a mine or a wizard's tower or something fun like that, so that we have some of these interesting locations to fight over.
Perhaps a ancient necropolis filled with tomb kings.
Oh no!
And powerful magic items.
Yes.
Very exciting.
Are we going to put the map up on the website?
Yes.
Yes.
So we can see the progress of...
Yes, the map, by the time you hear this, the map will be on the website. And it'll be up to date as of our last play today, which has taken us through 4 months?
4 months, yes.
4 months of the first year in Mighty Empires. So,
and you play 6 months in the year, and then through the remaining 6 months is the winter phase, as it's called, where you collect income from all your settlements buy new armies and cast magical spells.
And get started for kicking butt again the next year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's going to be good fun casting Equinox spells on each other, I think. We'll see if we can find a wizard tower before then.
Yeah, that's true. See what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully I'll be able to take to the field as well.
Yes.
The dwarves were acting instead of me, but I believe that I've got to owe a shout out to Ben for fighting honourably and with valour.
And, a lot of his troops survived, so the banners didn't take a lot of damage, which was good. Even though they didn't survive on the battlefield, like they were routed rather than destroyed.
Yes. Units that are fleeing off the field, should be noted, do not
Have to make casualty rolls.
have to make casualty rolls.
Yeah, makes sense.
And another thing to note, war machines, if they flee or have their crew killed, then they are destroyed. Because you can't carry the giant cannon with you when you're running at full speed away.
That's true.
Which is something that happened in my game against the Dark Elves.
Yeah. I don't think I got to Ben's organ gun in the end. It was just too far away and parked at a hill.
That was his one thing that he was happy about, I think he said. It was a good day.
Yeah, for sure.
Lots of fun battles to be fought. And we've got more in the coming weeks.
Yep. Some more cities invaded.
Yep. We've got a pitched battle on the coast between Order and Destruction.
Yep. I think we've got four battles to fight next week.
Yep.
Yeah, so just to recap, so that was 2 battles against independents, and up and coming, the alliances have actually met each other.
Yes, the first meeting of banners on the open battlefield.
Yep. However, as we failed to capture the independent villages, similar battles will be taking place, but this time Chaos will be getting involved in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm grabbing one of the Order villages so I can raise it on the west coast of the inland sea, which we do need to name at some point.
The sea?
Yeah.
Yes, we should.
It will be named when it's won.
Mm.
Oh, yeah, that should be the prize, to name the inland sea.
I mean, you can't really name a place that has been raised. So.
It's true. You can name it the Ruins of.
The Hobby Horse.
All right, so moving into the Hobby Horse section, I wanted to talk a bit about characters today. They're big models, very cool models. I just wanted to talk about how you should treat painting them compared to painting rank and file models, because they're a different sort of model, I guess.
Well, this isn't really going to blow anyone's socks off.
Okay.
But guess what?
What?
It's going to blow your socks off. Right. So
You just said it wouldn't. You liar.
No, I didn't. I misdirected, I think is what Spock said. And he is incredibly logical and probably good at painting miniatures.
Mm. Vulcans are good at most things.
But broadly speaking, I think it's a good idea to divide characters into, say, 3 types. The first one is NCOs, so that would be non-commissioned officers. Effectively, there'd be unit champions and also characters that could be functioning as a unit champion, even if they're a lord or hero or something like that. For this type, the thing that isn't going to knock your socks off, whilst also knocking your socks off, is paint them with the unit that you are painting.
Right.
They're largely going to be in exactly the same colours, the same armour, the same weaponry, but they might have something a little bit more fancy. So, for example, if it's, say, the Elven Spear Champion, if you're doing it from the plastic kit, the guy will have a sword. If it's the old metal model, it's in the same scale mail armour, but I believe that one had antlers, if you remember that miniature.
I don't remember it.
Right. You can go and look it up later on in
Yeah.
an old Citadel catalogue or something. Um,
I like it. More antlers.
You can always use more antlers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Distracts from the pointiness of the helmets.
I mean, the other thing in Command is there's a musician who's going to be dressed in exactly the same clothes, but if he's an Empire State Trooper, will carry a massive drum.
Mm-hmm.
There's standards which, well,
they're a whole thing to themselves. Yeah,
absolutely. But the actual model part of the model is usually armed and equipped, or at least in the game rules, is armed and equipped the same as the regiment.
Generally, they just have some sort of hand weapon.
Yeah, and a great big flag, which they can wield as a spear or a two-handed weapon.
If only.
Sometimes it's just a really big stick.
Absolutely. But so obviously one of the things that keeps coming up is you spend more time on characters. With these guys, it's probably a good idea to spend a little bit more time, but only because they have something different about them. So by virtue of the fact that they are a different miniature with the same features as your unit, you will be spending a little bit more time, but not a lot.
So you should keep them in your assembly line then?
Absolutely. But once you've gotten to the end of your block of 20, or maybe in the middle, once you've gotten bored of painting the same piece of armour, work on them antlers, them extra swords or whatever. The other thing that I was going to talk about is like legendary characters who kind of masquerade as NCOs. And this would be, for example,
it's like Nakaf, Emissary, etc. The standard bearer guy from Tomb Kings.
Yeah, that's an example of one. What I was thinking is the Imperial Knight commanders.
Oh, right, like the Grandmasters.
The Grandmasters, that's right. So functionally, they'll be on the same horse.
Yeah.
So if you're painting the horses separately, it will be on the same horse.
And if you don't know who they are, they kind of just look like another dude.
They pretty much do look like another dude, although they'll be holding up their sword or lance or hammer.
Well, they have their helmet up.
Absolutely.
That's right, because all the best generals don't wear helmets.
No, they wear plot armor instead.
For some reason, they won't be carrying a lance. They'll have a sword in hand.
They just hit way harder with it.
Yep.
It's because they have a squire running around somewhere where they can just go, Lance!
Yeah, he's
My name's not Lance, it's Frank.
Bring me the bloody stick, boy!
He's off the battlefield. You just have to throw it real hard. You think they'd use that for shooting at some point?
I think that's a good point. Actually, I think there's a lot of Bretonian knights could quite easily be legendary heroes, kind of masquerading as an NCO.
Yep.
So
Grey Knights are all basically like that kind of level of strength.
Absolutely, but to kind of flip it on its head, you might be wanting to spend extra time on your Grail Knights or your other elite units that would have these legendary heroes leading them anyway.
Yep.
So that kind of does it for that. Then you get specialists. And these are characters that, whilst you might actually put them within a unit, are not part of the unit.
Okay.
I'm picking on wizards here.
Oh,
very specifically. So typically these would be robed and bearded and somehow not dwarven.
Yeah. Or scantily clad.
Yep.
Yeah.
With some bones and teeth and
Yep.
stuff. So,
but you're putting them in the unit because they need warm bodies around them, not because they're actually part of the unit.
yeah,
All right.
pretty much. Unless it's orc of some description, because you might want to do the skin at the same time as you're doing the rest of the boys.
Yes.
get the tones all the same.
Yeah. Even if you're going to work a little bit more on some of the facial features or muscle features, getting that part of the model done is going to be part of the flow of painting the rest of the orc regiment.
So in your assembly line for the special characters, you're going to want to just get all the parts that are shared between them and the unit they're going into all at once, and then if you're painting like a bright wizard to go into a unit of archers or something, just do his skin.
Maybe you could certainly do it that way. I know that there are a number of painters who paint the face first. They are very brave.
Yeah, I'd say.
I am not that type of painter.
But, yeah, for a bright wizard. Actually, I don't know where I'd start on one of them. Probably the robes and the staff.
So you do them outside of the...
Absolutely, this would be a project of its own, or
Right.
could be a project of its own, depending on the model and if it bears any similarity to any of the other models in your army. So, for example, Night Goblin Shaman would be quite easy to kind of slot into your regular painting schedule and kind of break up the monotony of like, this is the fifth guy in a hood I've painted.
Well, especially the I'm thinking about the basing. Like you're going to have the same base for them if they're going in that unit.
Yeah.
And so you definitely want to make sure that you build a base at the same time you're building the base for the rest of the unit.
Yeah.
We should talk about basing one of these episodes.
Yeah, we will. We
I
will.
think, yeah.
Maybe that's next. Maybe that's
Absolutely.
next hobby horse.
I mean, I think one thing sort of worth pointing out that you might want to be covering later is that these characters, these specialists, might not be in the same unit each battle. You might want to chop and change, or depending on what happens. You'll be basing the army,
Yep.
not necessarily the model in the unit. You might just
That's
paint
fair.
him alongside a unit just to kind of break up the monotony of painting the same dude 50 times. Or, you just take time aside and paint him on its own, which is what you would do with what you might want to call a legendary character.
Sure.
So to move on to that
Big guy riding big monster.
big guy, now there's not that many armies that have units of big guys riding big monsters.
Yeah, it's always a character.
Ogres have them.
Yeah, sort of.
Chariots, I guess, it kind of count, but yeah.
Chariots do count.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but mostly it's
Single unit.
small dude on big monster.
Yeah.
I mean, this possibly could be its own thing.
Yeah,
But briefly, don't be afraid to pin these models.
sure.
Especially the metal ones.
I mean, I don't think you can construct a metal model without pinning it, really.
I think you can, but it's
You have to be very brave.
I don't know about bravery. I think it's lots of super glue and swear words.
And luck,
Yeah.
So, I mean, let's just talk about briefly what pinning is, in case you've never heard that term before.
Yeah. Basically, pinning is a way of assembling the model so that it stays together after it's been glued. Right?
Yep.
This will cut down on the amount of super glue and swear words that you use after you've assembled the model and painted it. Basically, you're using a type of drill called a pin vise, available in all good and some of the bad model shops. You're drilling a very small hole in the two pieces of the model that you want to assemble together, and then you're putting in a small rod.
Usually
Yeah.
clipped from a paper clip.
Yeah, it could be clipped from a paper. You can also buy brass tubing, and
Yep.
there's stuff from a garden centre. Actually, I have no idea what it's called, but I bought a few of it once.
Lasted you forever.
Yeah. It's quite pliable metal. It's got a plastic coating.
It's the floral wire or something like that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, it's got a name. Wow.
As so many things do.
Yeah. But you're not going to be using, say, more than a centimetre or of this. Normally about 5mm will do. And it will add time to the assembly of the model, but it cuts down on the swearing time once you've taken it to a battle and you've found that your Bloodthirster's wings have fallen off, or the Griffin's claw has fallen off, or the rider has
Yeah.
now gone for a ride.
Repair time on big models is very annoying.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So take the time and pin things. I mean, I 100% agree with this. Is why it's important to kind of just cover off and make sure people know what that means. It's a little bit extra in terms of time and cost because you have to have the tool, but yeah, it's so worth it.
Yeah, but yeah, these are the models that you are going to be treating as a project in their own right. So you probably won't be doing them alongside the rest of your army. Obviously, there are going to be exceptions to that, which we've pointed out. There's the base, possibly the weapons, faces, but
Really depends on the model.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that the big monsters are going to have their own hobby horse at some point. But it's definitely worth noting that you should set aside a whole day for them, like a whole project.
Yeah, I think one session could be assembly, all the way up to undercoat, and then kind of working on bits of it at a time.
I mean, it's a big model. It's going to draw the eye, so you definitely want to, have it look nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think just to riff on that point a little bit, like the big centerpiece character models, like the dragons, or the big chariot, or whatever it happens to be. I think you can be a bit more selective in the colors that you're going to use on that, as a way to kind of grab attention, because if you've got, I mean, it's kind of a dark and grim setting. And so things
Almost like it invented the term grimdark or something.
Yeah. So it's it's common to have rank and file troops be quite drab, or if you've 20, even if you've got 20 high elves, painting them all. Once you've painted them all, the white and the silver and the blue, even though they're not drab, they're kind of a uniform color. And so when you come to painting your centerpiece model, it's the thing that everybody's going to look at. So the more eye-catching you make it, the more kind of that wow factor you get when people look at your army. When you
If you try to camouflage your dragon, it's not
right, you're doing it wrong. And
unless you're what else.
While there are black dragons, I would advise if you unless you really, really, really want a black dragon, go for a different color. Even a blue or a purple or a red,
Dark purple dragon.
Yeah, or something that will grab the eye. And it can be like a nice contrasty color to the rest of your army if you want it to be, because it's a magical creature, right? It doesn't conform to uniforms and blah blah blah. So don't be afraid to go crazy with it to kind of really make something, in the literal sense of the word, spectacular.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think even if you are sticking with your regular army colours for the character, you can pick out a few other details. Add a couple of stars to the shield. Just so that the guy looks like he comes from the army, but he is actually a character that you do want to stand out. It kind of unifies the theme of your army itself.
Makes sense.
The Art of War.
All right, so we're going to be doing Art of War now. I wanted to talk a bit about the role of characters in a gameplay sense, because while they do look very cool and they're very fun to paint, and very eye-catching, sometimes I end up thinking, why would I take this 200-point character who does 4 attacks when I can just take 20 more guys, or I can take this big monster? What's the point in taking these characters over any other unit in the army? Something I wanted to ask about.
Okay. So, I mean, it's a really open-ended question in general. But...
Well, I can narrow it down then.
Sure.
What is the, I can change it slightly.
Sure.
What is the general role of a character versus any given, core special or rare unit?
Yeah. Okay. So I think there are 3 roles that characters can only play. 2, maybe, probably 3, that only characters can play. And then it really comes down to whether a character is better at playing a particular battlefield role in your army versus a unit doing the same thing.
Right.
So let's start with the obvious, right? Your general must be a character. So you got to have one in there. And when you're choosing your general, it's really... I feel like the general, you've got 2 ways to go. You can choose the general first and then kind of build the army around them, or you can build the army and then go like, okay, well, what do I want to have leading? There's a whole bunch of thought about, how should you get your general out, et cetera, et cetera. So, I think generals kind of fall into, I'm going to just put them into 2 camps. One is a super fighty general, whose job is to be out there kicking ass and taking names. And the other is a support general, whose job is primarily to give a leadership bubble, and to buff the unit that the general's part of, or to be a spellcaster or whatever else. So you've got the clearly fighty, and then the maybe support. Those are the kind of the 2 roles for the general. Then, okay, so your character role number 1 is the general. Number 2 is the BSB. So what is the BSB? The battle standard bearer, just to make sure I'm being inclusive for everybody who doesn't necessarily know all the lingo.
Actually, big stick bearer.
Big stick bearer, yeah. I like it. So the big stick bearer, their job is to give you a reroll within a bubble of their command range. And so that leadership reroll is massively important. As we were talking about earlier, right? Rerolling, if you've got leadership 10, which is the best you can have,
still a 3 in 36 chance of failing.
Right, a 1 in 12 chance of failing that now. But if you have a reroll, that's gone to 1 in 144.
Yeah, way better.
Right, which is huge, right? That's a huge difference. So those are your 2 kind of roles that you have to have characters for. And again, with Battle Standard Bearer, it kind of comes down to, again, personal preference, how you kit them out. But because they're inevitably a hero level character, they usually have only a 50-point magic item allowance. They have 1 less wound, et cetera, et cetera. They're never going to be quite so killy or quite so supportive as the others, as the generals, sorry.
Well, they do get a no points limit magic banner.
They do, which is significant in some armies and useless in others. I think that you can choose your BSB to be, exactly that, a magic stick bearer. And that's really kind of leaning into the support role for them. Typically when you give them like an 80-point banner or, something similar, then you're going to use their magic allowance to give them protective gear. You want to keep them alive because you want to have that bonus from whatever magic item it is or whatever magic standard it is. And so I see kind of BSBs predominantly falling into that camp. And then occasionally you see them where they're just also a fighty character, and they're in a unit, usually in a unit with, a general or another fighty character, and the unit's probably pretty fighty on top of that. And so it's kind of just a heavy hitting, lots of static combat res sort of unit. So those are kind of the obvious roles. And then the other one that I said is probably has to be a character is the wizard. And I say it probably has to be a character, A, because you don't have to take a wizard. You don't have to have one.
Well, nor do you have to have a battle standard bearer.
You don't have to have a battle standard bearer either. I think there's an army point value where probably at 1,500 points, I think, where it seems foolish not to have one. But yes, you don't have to have one. Certainly at 1,000 points, nobody took one in any of the games that we were playing. And it's the same with a wizard, I guess. But the big difference is that you can theoretically have a unit be a wizard. Like there's a bunch of special units in the game that are also spellcasters. So if you're taking a wizard, it's usually pretty obvious what their job is based on what your army is and what lore they can take. And so what I'm really liking about this game now is that wizards are no longer complete schlubs in close combat, right? Assailment spells have changed the feel of wizards in close combat a bit.
Assuming they get a good assailment spell.
Well, and battle magic gives you one as a signature spell. And lore familiar exists to allow you to take these sorts of things, right? So I think we could probably have a whole discussion about wizards separately. I think knowing what to do with a wizard is usually pretty straightforward. And I think kind of doesn't need us to spend a whole lot of extra time on. I will just say that, usually you're going for... I'm trying to think back to 8th because we really haven't, built a whole lot in this version yet. But I think that, the wizard sort of builds are either buffing your unit or debuffing, so making your unit stronger in close combat or trying to do direct damage. These are kind of the two approaches. I think that's probably all we need to talk about right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so to get to the main sort of point of the question, and I think I had to kind of deal with all of those cases first, which is, what are other characters used for?
Right.
And that is really about like general battlefield roles, as opposed to, very specific, you can only get this role if you're a character. So I think the most common use for a character is that fast moving sort of war machine hunter, chaff hunter, troubleshooter. Yeah. Your blitzer, right? Your all rounder, usually on something that flies, or your fastest sort of cavalry. Often, depending on how many points you're playing, it's often a hero level character that you really wish was a lord level character, but you just didn't have the points. And usually you want to protect him reasonably well, but you also want to make him reasonably fighty. So, it's very much comes down to what's available to your army. Frequently they have like a lance or a great weapon rather than a magic weapon in order to conserve on the points. And then the points go into protective gear or making him slightly harder hitting in some other fashion.
Right. And these won't be your 500-point Chaos Lord riding a dragon or anything.
No. That is very much fighty general camp. What you were just talking about.
All right.
This is your high elf noble on a great eagle, or your Bretonnian baron on
Pegasus.
hippogriff or a Pegasus.
Yep.
Right. Exactly. Right. It's that you're really concerned about maneuverability. And ability to zip all over the battlefield, and as you say, Tim, troubleshoot, right? There's not much else that can do that in rank and file troops. Like that combination of mobility and hitting power,
and tough, like not folding
and
to stick breeze.
survivability.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Really only comes from a character.
Because like great eagles can do the hunting war machines, but they just as often tend to die. You know.
Right. Well, I mean, they're tough 4, 3 wounds, and no armor. Right. They're going to die pretty easily.
Yeah.
At some point, there might just be somewhere on the battlefield you need another couple of attacks. You know.
Particularly in flanks. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Somewhere something's going wrong, or
exactly,
you know.
exactly. And ideally, you want the flight or ethereal or something that allows you to.
Yeah, the Green Knight can do that in Bretonnia as well.
Right, move in unexpected ways. Catch the corner that you can see that your opponent, wasn't aware that was available, and now you've got this nice extra flank attack to give you, a couple extra points of combat resolution or whatever. So, in Wood Elves, I have run a noble on an eagle in that fashion. Loads of times. Very, very successful and popular build for elves in general. I think most armies will have something similar. Even in like Lizard Men and
Tomb Kings?
Empire. I'm not sure about Tomb Kings. In those ones, it was a character on a horse, right? So I don't know what character mounts there are in Tomb Kings that are not chariots.
Horses.
You can put them on a horse?
Cameron Moor Sphinx.
Yeah.
Necroth Bone Dragon. Flying Carpet.
Yeah, the flying carpet is an interesting one. It's a magic item that gives you all of that maneuverability. It absolutely it works.
And you get some pretty cool models off of it if you model them with wings.
Yeah, for sure. But that's the role. It's the troubleshooter role, right? Okay, so the other sort of character role that you get is champion plus plus. I think is probably the best way to describe it. So you might have a big unit of night goblins. You might have a champion in there already, but for 30 points, you can put a big boss in there who's an extra point of leadership. And that's such a small buff, and you can give him a great weapon, and that might tip an extra wound or two in your favor when you get charged by Bretonnian knights or whatever.
Yeah, and these would be the basically NCO characters we were talking about earlier, the Hobby Horse.
Right, exactly right.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, orc and goblin characters. They're mainly there as like linebackers. These guys are here to make sure that your goblins units cause an extra wound or 6 or
yep, and that they maybe rally.
A notable thing here, some units, like I think I know of 2. There's Way Watchers and Black Orcs. They have to take a character when they are included in an army.
Right.
So
and that's kind of a character tax a little bit.
Yeah. Yep. I assume they would also fall in that same kind of category of NCO level, just at a hero level.
They can do. I think it really depends on the on what usage you want to put them to. I think with the Black Orcs, I would be more inclined to make the Black Orc my general, and make him a very fighty kind of general because that's what he wants to be doing. With the Way Watcher in that instance, I probably want to make him a sniper, who, because he can shoot characters even though they're in units, right? He's nasty. What is he called? A Way Stalker?
Yeah, Way Stalker.
And I may well deploy him separately from the Way Watchers in order to get, different benefits from the unit versus the character. But broadly speaking, yes, I think so. I think, they're kind of, they're there for a unit buffing reason. And that unit buffing reason could be so you could take the unit in the first place.
There's no better buff than having a unit.
It's true.
Yeah, I think for Black Orcs, they would be the general anyway.
Yeah.
Definitely the
if
highest
you are
leadership.
collecting orcs and goblins, do not underestimate Black Orc generals. They are tougher, they are stronger, they mean business. Putting them in the centre of your line is the best way to go. Obviously, don't be afraid of having a troubleshooting character or two in your orc and goblins.
Yeah.
But bear in mind that orcs and goblins normally have things in the army that other characters want to troubleshoot. And I'm looking at things like fanatics,
Yeah.
doom divers, anything that is a goblin but is not your common garden variety goblin. It's normally a goblin with some kind of trick up his sleeve.
Some 50-point stone thrower, which is stupidly cheap.
Well, yeah. So absolutely right. That's what the troubleshooter is looking for. I don't think he wants to tangle with fanatics particularly, right?
I don't think many things want to tango with fanatics.
No, well,
other than arrows.
So fanatics, right? It's an interesting point. We're not really talking about this, but maybe this is next podcast's Art of War. Fanatics you kind of want to deal with by using the cheapest chaff unit that you can find to run into them and make them explode, right?
Potentially, yeah. I mean, they have changed the rules, I've noticed, on fanatics.
They have, yeah.
Which,
It's not what we're talking about right now, though.
No, it's
not at all.
It's
But
not.
for another adventure.
Yes.
Another tale.
Another tale. So what kind of spawned this question was, or this section was a question that got asked in the Discord around, hey, I discovered that I have this character and I really love this model and I want to put him in the army. What do I do with him? And so, if that is your dilemma and you're like, okay, I don't know what this character does, but it's so pretty and I've done a great paint job on it. You can think about the easiest one is, find the unit that most closely matches that character in terms of fluff and equipment, and put them in that unit as kind of a super champion. And you probably won't go too far wrong. That's never a bad choice, even if it's maybe not the optimal choice. And at least it puts them on the battlefield and gives you some experience with the model. So I think in this case it was an Empire captain with a pistol,
On a horse, yeah.
on a horse. So yeah, put him in some Outriders and see what happens.
Give him a cool name.
Yeah, and a cool hat.
Well, maybe.
Okay,
Give
so
him the desire for a cool hat. That's his great quest.
I think specifically, you could definitely go with the Outriders. Could cause a bit more damage. Could certainly increase their close combat ability. But I think it's worth pointing out that, not mentioning any specific characters, but if you have a character that goes with any unit that is typically melee, giving them a ranged weapon suddenly adds a new dynamic to that unit.
Gives him a stand and shoot.
yeah, it does.
I mean, at some point in the battles never go the way that you think they're going to go.
Yep.
No plans for contact with the enemy.
Yeah.
And, at some point you might want, I'm talking about fanatics again, even though you can't target them, but with shooting, but at some point you might want to maneuver and shoot something.
Yep.
Or any other crazy thing. And it also helps if you have an army that doesn't exactly behave the way that your opponent expects.
Yep, absolutely. I think with the super champions, as we're calling them, I think you can then kind of think about what magic items to give them, right? And the equipment can really kind of help dictate what it is that they're doing within the unit. The ranged item absolutely makes a ton of sense. You can also you got to remember that a character can leave and join another unit if they want to. But I think if you're if you're struggling to find a role for a character, it is absolutely the easiest thing to do is just run them with no equipment as kind of like this extra warm body, and then you'll get a feel for, oh, okay, now they got into combat and this happened. I really wish that my character had X on them, and then that's your next list, right? Run that and try that out, and then you get into that comment. You're like, oh, this weapon was useless, even though I really wanted it last time, or whatever else, right?
Yeah. I can imagine putting like the Monster Slayer weapon that you can get, Executioner's Blade, I think it's called, or something like that.
Yep.
Might just be called the Monster Slayer sword. That can be very useful in some lists for your super champions, and it can be terrible in others.
Yep.
Depending on if the opponent has any monsters.
Right. And I think monsters are and monstrous cav and even monstrous infantry. I think they're all affected by that blade. So you're probably going to have some use for it. And the other thing you can do is then,
Not against dwarves.
Not against dwarves. Yeah, yeah, because gyrocopters don't.
They're monstrous cav. They're affected by it, but they're gyrocopters. They'd out of stiff breeze anyway.
That's true.
Which is funny because they fly.
They fly now.
I think the other thing you can do is you can think about, well, what are the minor roles in the army that I haven't filled yet? So you've got major roles in the army, and I think this is a topic for another Art of War. But we talked a bit about like hammer and anvil as a tactic last time. Those are kind of major roles, right? Minor roles are more like, well, do I have somebody that has flaming attacks in case I need to take out some regenerating trolls or whatever else, right? Something that might give me an advantage. The really important one is, do I have somebody with magical attacks? Because the last thing you want to do is get held up by a 50-point ethereal unit. Like Spirit Hosts still in the game, aren't they?
Yeah, but you got to take them units 3 now, so
Okay.
it's 150 points for the unit.
Okay.
But like a Cairn Wraith,
Yeah.
at 75 points, fly him up to a guy, and that unit's stuck.
Yep. Ethereal is it's a real gotcha if you're not expecting it. And so you do always want to have, some magical attacks in your army. And ideally, if you've got the points to spare, given your champion or your super champion magical attacks, maybe not necessarily a bad thing. Other sorts of minority roles I'm not sure of yet, but I know those ones for sure because of how regen works. But I suspect we're going to start to come across them as the game develops and the meta develops a little bit more. So trying to summarize this all up, your generals and your characters in general kind of fall into fighty versus support. And think about when you're building them, are you building them as one or the other? Or are you trying to get that middle ground that's kind of okay at both? My recommendation is make your general killy, make your BSB supporty, and then after that, it's about and make sure you bring a troubleshooter. Like those are the 3 things that I would recommend to everybody. And sometimes your general is also your troubleshooter, but usually you want your general to be your big scary killy thing.
Big blender man, yeah.
Right. Or leading a big blender unit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
There is, on the topic of dwarves as well, a question to be asked about magical defense and how useful that is in this edition, which I can't really speak to yet as I've not had many games with a lot of wizards in them. Mm-hmm. But when you're facing off against a big wizard who's making his unit into a Death Star by buffing him up with, extra attacks and strength and toughness and all that, and he's casting assailment spells, it can be really useful to have a Dispelling Wizard or a Rune Lord or Anvil of Doom.
Yeah, what's interesting is you cannot, as a wizard, you cannot dispel when you're in combat. So even though you can cast assailment spells, you can't dispel that same spell coming at you. So
It means Wizards are a little bit more flashy than they are in some other games.
right. And I think it means more spells are going to be successfully cast. And so I think that people are going to rely on magic a bit more to help give the edge. And so, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that develops, right? This is, again, a whole meta game that we haven't really discovered yet because everything's still too new, and I'm excited to see how it turns out.
Yeah. And there's also a question to be asked about lone infantry and cavalry characters, not monstrous at all.
Yeah, so I did say that the troubleshooter characters absolutely can be lone cavalry, lone infantry with flying if they have it. I think a lone infantry model generally has to have a very specific purpose to be worth doing. Partially because, as soon as they move more than 3 inches away from another one of your units, they're just going to get picked off by shooting and be cheap points. The Weight Stalker that we mentioned earlier is a good example because he's really hard to shoot with all of his cool stealthy rules, etc. There are snipery type of models and assassin-y type of models that kind of do that on their own. But in general, I think lone infantry really wants to go into a unit and have the protection of all the warm bodies, right? Be in a bunker. I think the cavalry probably wants to do the same. But like I said,
Unless they're a troubleshooter.
And even then, they can start the game in a unit and leave it. It's a little harder to leave these days because you can't charge out.
Thank God.
But yes, I think that was a good change.
I think having a mounted battle standard bearer might be, if you can take it, do take it. Good auto include. If you're looking up and down your line and you know that you are going to need a reroll, or it would be nice to have a reroll over here, keeping him sort of skulking around the back whilst... I mean, I say skulking, he's carrying a massive flag saying, not only here I am, but here we are.
Look at me, specifically.
Yeah, I think that one's a little more dependent on how you've built your army. Absolutely. Things that move faster are usually better than things that move slower. All of the things being equal. I mean, so yeah, if you can get them mobile, that's great. Yeah. I generally, like when I run my battle standard bearer, a lot of the time I'm putting him in a unit, and then I'm kind of having the center of the army be around the unit that the battle standard bearer is in. So,
all right, men, rank up. We'll charge him in the flanks.
Okay, so as we move into the nearing the end of the episode, I'd like to take any questions we've had since the last time and just give some answers to those as best we can. With any that we had?
Yep. So I've got a couple of questions. Or is it the same question to both of you? So whoever wants to go first. So
I volunteer.
You got congratulations. You have volunteered for the question. Right. So as you guys are the only ones out of the three of us who's played the current edition and sticking with the theme of characters. So what characters did you take in your last game or your last few games?
In the one I played for the campaign, I took a level 4 Chaos Sorcerer with a lore familiar, with the lore of demonology. And I loved him. He was great. Absolutely brilliant. He made the unit of Khorne chosen that he was in absolutely terrifying.
Hold on a sec. Can we get a record scratch? You put a wizard in a unit of Khorne worshipping Chaos Knights.
Chaos warriors. They're just on foot.
Chaos warriors that are on foot.
Yeah. It just shows you how scary his sorcerer must have been if they didn't kill him.
Yeah. Can you see me in my office later?
There's nothing that says I can't do it.
Yeah, that's fine. I just want to talk to you in my office later.
He ended up making the unit into essentially a block of 13 characters.
Wow.
With the amount of damage they were putting out.
So he was very definitely a supporting...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
In fact, he was less killy than any of the rank and file models.
Right.
He had fewer attacks and less strength.
Was he also your general?
He was, yes. He was the only character on the list.
Okay. Made sense.
And he was probably my favorite character I've run out of the 2 lists I've run so far. The list I ran on at Breakpoint I had a level 1 sorcerer with the Mark of Nurgle. And he was... Well, his unit got into combat once, and when it did, it died.
Were these Tzeentchian Chaos Warriors by any chance? Or?
No, these were undivided.
Okay, we won't talk about that one later. But.
He was entirely disappointing. He cast a spell one time, and it did 0 wounds. He had Hammer Hand. He was just a level 1 sorcerer. Didn't know if we needed a wizard, so he included the wizard anyway. What I learned from that was that level 1's wizards are next to useless.
Certainly against dwarfs, they're tricky.
Unless you got like a really good spell on a 7+, I don't think they're really worth taking.
And what was the other character you took?
Exalted Champion. This was my general. He was on a horse with a unit of chosen Chaos Knights marked with Khorne. He was great. He was very killy. Just up to the killiness of the unit. Okay,
so killy general, good. Supporting wizard, really low level, bad. Yeah. In that instance.
Yeah. I think if I had taken an aspiring champion instead of him and made him a BSB, I think that would have been better use of the points.
Yeah.
So do you think your Khornate wizard would have done better against the dwarves?
Yeah, I think so, because he wouldn't be affected by the magic resistance because he only really cast enchantments on his own unit.
Right.
And he would have essentially made his unit extraordinarily killy and able to outpunch the hammerers that were the bane of my existence.
Fair.
Okay. Well, I just got this in from the Old Hammer report. I need to check the front cover of the Realm of Chaos books regarding Khornate sorcerers. So you might not have to see me in the office later.
Okay, well, I'll answer the question too, even though you didn't ask me to. I took the same list, all 4 games. I took a Treeman Ancient, who was my general. And I predominantly took her because I wanted to have a wizard and I didn't have a bunker of infantry to put an elven wizard in. And so I was just a little worried about the survivability of an elven wizard in 1,000 points. Whereas a tree woman very happily survives anything you want to throw at her for quite some time. So
as you said, she never died.
She never died. And I stopped thinking of her as being a big 18-inch leadership bubble and started thinking of her as being an attack machine when I took Hammer Hand she had battle magic level 2, right? So they come as level 2 wizards. You can take Hammer Hand and you've got so much potential damage output.
And battle magic is a great lore. Like, it's got a lot of good spells in there.
It does. She, in the game against Ben, against the dwarfs, she got Hammer Hand and Fireball, and it was just amazing. I've got 2 shooting attacks and a
lot of.
So you've got a sec, right?
Yeah.
So Hammer Hand, that
you can get behind.
But well, maybe. I mean, there's a lot to be said for if you're a tree, you might have a unreasonable fear of nails and hammers and something you might want to work through.
This particular tree man has giant knife hands.
Yeah.
Right, but run me through like Fireball, or in fact, you might want to talk to me in my office about Fireball and treatment.
Yeah. So as someone who does a bit of woodworking, I trees are so inflammable. When they're still alive, it kind of bothers me that they're flammable, but I let it slide. The other character that I took was a troubleshooter. So this was a hero on a Warhawk. He did not have. He had a great weapon, and that was about it, really. He did not have the kind of necessary survivability to be a great troubleshooter. So
Wood Elf Armor saves will do that to you.
Yeah, Wood Elf Armor saves and no magic items or anything like that. And the Warhawk doesn't even give him an extra wound or anything. So overall, I was a little underwhelmed by him. But given that I was squeezing in it was really in there to kind of see, well, what does he do without anything?
He's monstrous cavalry, right?
Yes, he is.
So he benefits from Lookout Sir.
From what? Sorry.
From Lookout Sir.
Yes, I mean you can literally run him in a unit of Warhawk Riders. If
Right,
you
but
want to.
you can also stick him like near a unit, and they can't shoot at him unless he's the closest.
Does it not have to be?
Does it have to be regular infantry?
Same model type?
I don't think that's true because you can have a regular infantry and a heavy infantry.
Right, but well, so it used to be in 8th edition that you just had to be infantry. So a monstrous infantry could get a Lookout Sir from regular infantry.
Allow me to consult the Book of Armaments.
Yes, consult the Book of Armaments.
So what you do differently with this supporting character is probably include him in a unit.
I don't think so. I think what I would actually do with him is I would include him in a list that had more points,
Right.
and I would kit him out better. I would give him something that gave him a bit more survivability, and I would either my next experiment is to put him on a Great Eagle instead of a Warhawk. The Warhawk gets the benefit of a 360-degree charge because all of his arcs are front arcs, whereas the Great Eagle actually has a flank and a rear.
Oh, okay.
But gives you the benefit of an extra wound and more deadly attacks and stuff like that. So
And he can still turn 90 degrees after the end of his move.
yes, which is something I learned, with that lumbering rule that they all have.
Yeah.
So I probably will put him on an Eagle rather than a Warhawk, and I'll give him something to make him a bit killier, a bit more survivable, and see how he goes.
So it turns out that you need to have your troop type be infantry or cavalry. That's not joined a unit to be considered a lone character. And
Okay.
since he's monstrous cavalry, he counts as cavalry.
Oh, that's interesting. So my big guy on an Eagle could sit beside.
He's a monster.
No, the Eagle's monstrous cow.
I can never remember the difference.
I think. Oh well, on a
the
Warhawk.
hawk's the one that doesn't give the wound, right?
That's right.
Yeah. So that one's monstrous cavalry.
Monstrous cavalry.
The eagle is a monster,
Right. Monstrous
creature.
creature. So when dude is on him, he's still a monstrous creature.
Yeah.
Okay.
They use the unit type of the mount.
Okay, that makes sense.
So with your little bird, you can keep him within 3 inches of a unit, and he can't be shot at.
That is interesting. He generally doesn't want to be within 3 inches of a unit, but that is really good to know. Yeah, so all of these little tidbits we're still learning about the game. It's very difficult for me to say anything conclusively, so I'm just trying to kind of do general principles.
How are you guys getting on with the open order, close order?
Skirmishers?
Yeah.
It's actually really easy once you're playing the game.
Yeah. The difference between close and open order is minor.
Yep.
Close order gets +1 combat res. Open order gets to turn 90 degrees.
Yeah.
Skirmishers are skirmishers. They basically run around bases.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting to me is how skirmishers also tend to have open order. And I think there's some interactions there that I haven't had a chance to explore yet. And I'll give an example, and then maybe we can wrap up after that. Is dryads. So the dryads, I haven't totally given up on them. They have skirmisher and open order, and they also have stubborn. And so what stubborn gives you is that when you would have, instead of
making a leadership test, you may fall back in good order automatically.
right, and fall back in good order automatically, which you move away, and then you get a reform at the end of.
You get a reform at the end of a fallback in good order?
I think so.
That changes things. Wow.
I think so. Do you want to consult the Book of
I
Armaments?
shall consult the Book of Armaments.
But this was a kind of this was sent to me on Discord from someone, I can't remember exactly who. And so the idea there is that they fall back in good order from being stubborn, and then they've been a skirmisher screen in front of your more expensive and more squishy troops. Then they fall back in good order and reform in open order. So now they're all ranked up so that they get the rank bonus. And then, they can come back into the battle ranked up. I don't know. It's not going to be amazing, but it might be an interesting and unexpected tactic to add a couple of extra points of combat res.
You're correct. A rallied unit may immediately perform a free reform.
Right, and the fallback and go to order counts as fleeing and then immediately rallying.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right, so there you go. So
That is very strong.
That's interesting, right? And I think that's true for all skirmishers who are also open order. Anytime they fall back in good order, they can do that.
Anytime anyone falls back in good order.
Yeah.
Right, right, for sure. That's when you're going to pop in and out of these different close order, open order, skirmisher sort of formations that you can do. And I think Stubborn gives it to you gives you an automatic fallback. So
Yeah. So you lose your first combat, and then you fall back in good order, reform, and get your rank bonus in the next combat.
Yep, exactly.
Very useful.
Yeah.
All right. With that, I think we're
We shall be back next turn
we're gonna
in good order.
bring it to a close here. If you want to participate in the community, asking questions, you can join our Discord at rankandflight.com/discord. We also have a blog where we're posting progress on our campaign and other things at rankandflight.com. And other than that, we'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks for listening.
See ya.